Hey, this is New York John at the Indoor Promised Land. We're up here in the veg garden and we're dealing with transplanting these rooted clones into hydroton in the net pots so that they can get a start in the hydroponic system. So it's very, very simple. I actually started taking off the wrappers on these cubes and took my sharp knife and I like to scrape off all the sides. You got a couple roots coming out the sides, most of the bottom, and you scrape those off as best as you can. Pull them off, and that is going to immediately stimulate vigorous lateral rooting, right? Which is great because we're sticking it in this. We want it to root out into the hydroton and not just follow like the path of least resistance, which might just be down. We want it going out. When this roots into these hydroton pellets in the net pots, we want to see it coming out the sides, not just down the bottom. So anytime that you can control root pruning as they're this young and the root growth is vigorous, that's when I like to do that. So this is pretty simple. They're not gigantic clones. We don't have to probably root them too far down, and I don't like to. I like to kind of have them here at the top and then have the hydroton topped off at the top, maybe with just a layer of pellets covering the top of the grow cubes. So more or less, we would take this hydroton. Oh yeah, this hydroton is like quadruple washed. You can't just take it out of the bag and use it. You have to wash it and then drain it and then wash it again, like soak it in the sink. I use a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket, and then I use a 5-gallon bucket that has a bunch of 1/4-inch holes drilled all around the bottom and the bottom couple inches of the sides. And I'll toss them in the bucket and run hot water over it. I like to use UC roots to kind of wash that stuff off and get any of the salts off, which is what that's good for as well. It also hits it with a little bit of like calcium. These hydroton pellets don't really absorb so much as they hold water on the surface because they're porous, and the water just kind of, it doesn't really waterlog these things. Ultimately, they float, So I'll do that like 4 times, right? And the last time, I'll pH adjust down the water to like 5.5. The hydroton, I'm not sure what it is about it, but it tends to drive pHs back up again. Just, be in contact with this for any amount of time. So because we're going to be in a res situation, that's not a big deal. 5 gallons is very easy to maintain the reservoir pH. Even just a couple times a week, go in there and add a little bit of pH down. But also because you're aerating in the res that these the tanks that these guys go into, because you're aerating the air with air stones and air pump, that is also raising the pH of the water. So you'd have to do it anyway, but the point is you've got to rinse this stuff off really, really good. Like I go 4 times out of the bag, and you'd be surprised, like the second and third time you still get a lot of silt. I'll toss it in the bucket, fill it up with water, really push them down for like a few minutes, just like hand mixing it, and then I'll toss it in the one that has the holes, and it'll all drain out, and I'll rinse that off, and you see a lot of silt come out the bottom of that. When you pour it back in, you do it again 4 times. So this is already washed. I wasn't going to bore you with showing you that. So kind of find a level here and fill it to that level. I probably could take out a couple more still. And I'm just going to situate it there. I just get another one, reach into the bucket here, and gently pour it around the outside. And you want to do it over a tray because you're going to drop a bunch of these. And that's the worst thing in the world, guys, stepping on one of these hydrotons. It's not as bad as a Lego, but still pretty bad. And there you have it. Label stays in, it's oriented right. And you could use this as an opportunity, to set, if the next one's taller and you want to keep them all around the same height, as long as your nodes are above that height, everything you want to sacrifice. Like I'm going to pull that off, and I'll pull this little mess off down here, and this is trying to grow back. And there's a little bit of a crap leaf there. But these, again, they're reasonably small, they're reasonably short. They've got multiple nodes on each cutting, and that's kind of the thing that I'm going for, is multiple nodes when it starts off. And then the last thing here is when they're maybe a couple days, just starting to root, I'll top them. I'll take whatever the dominant is, and I'll just do this one right now. Boom. And it's going to promote the lateral branching after it starts rooting. But if you take clones with multiple nodes and tight node spacing, and you get them to root out, and then you top them, all they have are the other nodes to grow out, as long as you could see nodes. But these came from a good donor plant, and they're the tail end of my clones. We ended up selling like a lot of these, and now's the time people want to grow outdoors, and now's the time I, give a lot out and share with my friends and whatnot. And so I had these 7 left, and I thought we just gotta hit them, put them in the rooter and get it going from there. So more or less, it's rinse repeat, and there's nothing else special to this other than determining the height that you want it. Oh, and that's the other thing. You could bury them all the way at the bottom, but it's not going to help you because, check it out, you're not going to have structure later on. If you're going to grow a big bushy plant, this isn't going to work at all. You're not going to have structure later on to, when this is in there, because it's not really attached to any of the hydroton. It's not woven its way through it before it got to the net. If you put them up higher, and like I said, I scrape off all 4 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the bottom before I put them in here, because I want that outside growth. I want that to continue and be vigorous, because I want to see it start coming out the sides, kind of in these top 2 lines. You can get them low enough where they only just hang out the bottom, and you're really not maximizing all the surface area of all this wet media. So more than that, grow big plants, this is going to topple over, because the hydroton provides a little bit of strength. When this is woven in there, and then it weaves its way, the roots come out, the sides of the net pot, they really kind of laminate the ball of hydroton. But don't get me wrong, you could shake it or move it or disturb it pretty easily. So that's a drawback of planting them too low. All right. So midway or higher, just enough, like I said, for me to get. That's a mess. Just enough for me to get the top of the grow cube covered in one layer of hydroton, and then I know I'm maximizing all the volume, all the area of the surface around this, and all the volume, roots coming out on all sides and not just going down. So look, that's the end result, and what we'll do, and I'll show you where they're going to go into the 8 pod tote. So just check it out here in a second. All right.